Have you ever gazed upon an expectant mother, her face radiant with the promise of new life, her hands instinctively cradling the precious miracle within? That profound sense of wonder, of pure, untainted creation? But what if that sacred vessel, that haven of burgeoning life, became a conduit for something else? Something ancient, malevolent, and utterly terrifying. Tonight's story is not for the faint of heart. It's a harrowing journey into the deepest shadows of motherhood. A chilling account that blurs the line between blessing and an insidious curse. We follow Emily and Michael, a young couple whose idyllic dreams of a perfect family are shattered by a paranormal presence that takes root where they least expect it, deep within Emily's own body. This isn't just a scary story. It's a plunge into a haunted pregnancy that will force you to question everything you thought you knew about the unknown, about the very essence of life itself. Are you prepared to confront the chilling truth of the evil in her womb? Because once you do, you might never look at the miracle of pregnancy the same way again. Steel your nerves, for the story of Emily's unholy conception begins now. Emily and Michael had built their life in a charming, slightly aged house nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio, the quintessential setting where dreams of white picket fences and happy families felt not just real, but tangible. When Emily discovered she was pregnant, their joy was boundless, an almost palpable energy that filled every room. They meticulously painted the nursery a soft, hopeful yellow, spent hours poring over tiny clothes, and playfully debated names, classic, strong names like Sarah if it was a girl, James if a boy. The first trimester unfolded as expected. The familiar waves of morning sickness, the pervasive fatigue, the usual anxieties that accompany first-time parenthood. Michael was a doting partner, tirelessly bringing her crackers in bed and gently rubbing her tired, aching feet. Everything seemed perfect, a picture of domestic bliss. Or so it seemed. The first truly unsettling sign emerged around the 14th week. Emily, a lifelong vegetarian with a deep-seated aversion to meat, developed an insatiable, almost predatory craving for raw meat. Not just rare steak, but truly raw, glistening, bloody cuts of beef. She'd find herself standing in front of the butcher's display, her gaze fixed, a hunger she couldn't rat. Then came the whispers, faint at first, like the rustling of dry leaves just outside the window, even when the house was sealed tight. She'd hear them when she was utterly alone, often when her hands rested protectively on her subtly growing belly. They weren't words she could decipher, more like sibilant, guttural, ancient sounds that made the fine hairs on her arms stand on end. She desperately tried to ignore them, attributing them to stress, to overactive imagination, to the tumultuous cascade of pregnancy hormones. As the second trimester relentlessly progressed, the nursery, once a beacon of hope and anticipation, began to feel profoundly cold. Not merely a draft, but a bone-chilling, pervasive cold that no amount of heating could dispel. Toys they'd carefully chosen, a plush teddy bear, a colorful mobile designed to soothe, would sometimes be found in different places, or, inexplicably, turned to face the wall, as if manipulated by an unseen, malicious hand. Emily's nights became a torment of vivid, terrifying nightmares. She'd dream of a towering, shadowy figure with eyes that glowed with malevolent crimson light, its presence suffocating, its focus always, terrifyingly, on her womb. She'd bolt upright, screaming, drenched in a cold sweat, Michael holding her tightly, his own face etched with a worry that deepened with each passing night. Her very personality began to subtly shift, a chilling transformation. The once gentle and loving Emily became irritable, prone to sudden, inexplicable bursts of anger, sometimes even cruelty. She'd snap at Michael for the smallest, most trivial things, her eyes holding a flicker of something unfamiliar, something cold and distant that wasn't her. One evening, as Michael was gently massaging her swollen belly, he felt a distinct, jarring kick, harder, more forceful than any baby should be capable of at that stage. But what truly chilled him to the core was the sensation that immediately followed. It wasn't a simple kick, but more like something clawing from the inside, a desperate tearing motion. Emily gasped, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored his own, a silent understanding passing between them that this was profoundly wrong. Medical checkups, frustratingly, revealed nothing abnormal. The ultrasounds consistently showed a healthy, developing fetus. A perfectly normal baby, Dr. Peterson would declare with a reassuring smile, utterly oblivious to the cold, creeping dread that had taken root in Emily's soul. But sometimes, Emily swore she saw something on the grainy screen, a fleeting shadow behind the baby's form, a brief, malevolent flicker in its tiny, developing eyes that was undeniably not quite human. Michael, a man grounded in science and logic, found himself utterly lost, adrift in a sea of the inexplicable. He began researching online, typing in desperate, frantic queries: paranormal pregnancy, evil spirits and unborn children, haunted womb. Most results were fictional stories, fantastical tales, but some obscure forums spoke of ancient entities, generational curses, and insidious demonic attachments. He cautiously suggested they seek help: a priest, a therapist, anyone who might offer an explanation, a solution. Emily, initially resistant, fearing she was losing her mind, finally, reluctantly, agreed. They sought out Father Thomas, an elderly priest known in their community for his quiet wisdom and his understanding of unconventional matters. He listened patiently, his expression growing graver, his eyes darkening with concern with each chilling detail they recounted. He visited their home, performing a solemn blessing, and gave Emily a small, worn crucifix to wear around her neck. For a few days, a fragile calm settled over the house. The oppressive cold in the nursery seemed to lessen, the whispers quieted to an almost imperceptible murmur. But it was a temporary reprieve, a cruel illusion. The entity, it seemed, was only angered, provoked by their attempt to banish it. The activity intensified with a terrifying vengeance. Objects would fly across rooms with violent force when Emily was agitated, as if hurled by an invisible hand. The whispers became clearer, sometimes forming a single, guttural, chilling word: mine. Emily grew visibly weaker, her skin pale and translucent, deep, bruised circles forming under her eyes. She felt like a prisoner in her own body, a tormented host to something malevolent that was systematically draining her life force, all while nourishing itself on her vitality. One night, Michael woke to find Emily standing by the nursery window, staring out into the impenetrable darkness, her hand resting possessively on her swollen belly. She was humming a discordant, tuneless melody, a sound that was ancient, deeply unsettling, and utterly devoid of human warmth. When he gently touched her shoulder, she turned slowly, and for a terrifying, heart-stopping moment, her eyes glowed with that same faint, malevolent red light from her nightmares. "It wants out, Michael," she whispered, her voice raspy, a chilling echo that was not entirely her own. "It's almost ready." The fear was no longer just about a difficult pregnancy. It had escalated into a desperate, primal struggle for survival. What unspeakable horror was truly growing inside Emily? And what would happen when it was finally, inevitably, born? The due date loomed like a grim, inescapable execution. Emily was a mere shadow of her former self, frail, translucent, and consumed by an unshakable, pervasive terror. The entire house felt like a pressure cooker of negative energy, a suffocating aura of dread. Father Thomas had advised them to go to the hospital early, but under no circumstances was Emily to be left alone. He feared the entity would attempt to fully seize control during the profound vulnerability of childbirth, a moment of ultimate transition. The labor pains began with a sudden, brutal intensity, far more agonizing than any doctor had prepared them for. As they frantically rushed to the hospital, a violent storm raged outside, mirroring the chaotic internal maelstrom within Emily. In the sterile confines of the delivery room, the fluorescent lights flickered ominously, casting dancing shadows. Nurses bustled with practiced efficiency. Doctors spoke in calm, measured tones, but an undeniable, electric tension permeated the very air. Emily screamed, not just from the excruciating physical pain, but from a primal, guttural fear that tore from her soul. Her eyes darted wildly around the room, seeing fleeting shadows coalesce in the corners, feeling the icy grip of the entity tightening around her, around the child that was tearing its way into the world. "It's coming!" a nurse suddenly shouted, her voice laced with urgency. Dr. Peterson positioned herself, her hands ready, her expression focused. Michael gripped Emily's hand, his knuckles white, his lips moving silently, muttering the desperate prayers Father Thomas had taught him. As Emily gave one final, agonizing, earth-shattering push, the room plunged into an abrupt, momentary darkness. The emergency lights flickered on, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced like specters. A baby's cry pierced the sudden, profound silence, a cry that sounded wrong. Not the healthy, vigorous wail of a newborn, but something thin, reedy, ancient, and almost mocking. A sound that seemed to carry a perverse triumph. Dr. Peterson held up the baby. In the dim, flickering emergency light, its features were hard to discern clearly. But Michael saw it. For a fraction of a second, before the nurse quickly swaddled the infant in a blanket, he saw its eyes. They weren't the unfocused, milky blue of a newborn. They were wide, unnervingly aware, and they glowed with a faint but unmistakable, malevolent crimson light. And on its tiny chest, just for a fleeting moment before being covered, he thought he saw a faint, dark mark, like a birthmark, but shaped with an intricate, ancient design, a symbol he'd seen in one of Father Thomas's old, forbidden books on demonic sigils. Emily lay panting, utterly exhausted, her body trembling. Is it okay?" she whispered, her voice a fragile thread of hope and terror. Before anyone could answer, the low, guttural chuckle seemed to emanate from the blanket-wrapped bundle, a sound no infant should be capable of making, a sound that chilled them to the bone. The temperature in the room plummeted, a sudden, icy wave. The crucifix Emily wore around her neck suddenly felt searingly hot against her skin, burning her. The evil wasn't just in her womb anymore. It was here. It was born. And it was waiting. What transpired in the harrowing days and weeks that followed is a story Emily and Michael rarely speak of, and only then in hushed, fearful tones, their voices barely above a whisper. The child whom they named Daniel, clinging to the desperate hope that a normal name could somehow anchor him to normalcy, was profoundly different. He rarely cried like other babies. But when he did, it sent inexplicable shivers down their spines. He watched them with an unnerving, intelligent gaze that was far too old, far too knowing for his tiny body. The paranormal activity in their home didn't cease. It merely shifted, intensifying and centering itself around Daniel's crib, his presence acting as a dark beacon. Father Thomas, his face etched with grim determination, performed an emergency rite. Not quite a full exorcism, but a powerful blessing and binding ritual over the child and the house. It seemed to quell the overt, violent manifestations, pushing the entity into a dormant state, or perhaps just making it more subtle, more patient, more insidious. Emily and Michael live with a constant, gnawing fear, a pervasive dread that colors every moment of their lives. They love their son, or at least the innocent child they desperately believe is still somewhere within him, trapped alongside the encroaching darkness. But every time Daniel looks at them with those unsettlingly knowing eyes, every time a sudden, inexplicable cold spot drifts through a room, they are brutally reminded of the haunted pregnancy and the ancient evil that irrevocably entered their lives. They eventually moved from that house, seeking escape, but the feeling, the entity's faint, lingering signature, sometimes follows, a cold breath on the back of their necks. Did they truly escape it? Or is the evil in the womb now an evil in their home, biding its time, growing stronger with each passing day? It's a terrifying question that haunts their every waking moment and fuels their darkest, most profound nightmares. So the next time you see a pregnant woman, remember Emily's story and wonder, just for a moment, what truly lies beneath the surface? What unseen forces might be at play? What would you have done? And do you truly believe such true paranormal horrors are possible? If this chilling tale of paranormal horror sent shivers down your spine and left you questioning the unknown, please let us know in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a haunted feeling, an unexplained phenomena, or a chilling encounter with the supernatural? Don't forget to like this video, share it with fellow horror enthusiasts and those brave enough to face the darkness, and subscribe to the channel for more true scary stories, nightly horror tales, and bone-chilling encounters. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a spine-chilling episode. What kind of terrifying story do you want to hear next? Until next time, sleep tight, if you can. The darkness is always listening, and sometimes it's closer than you think.